It is our favorite time of the week again. Time for hashtag Rising Qs when we get to answer your questions. Saagar, what is up first?
Number one, what do we got here? With the unbridled censorship orchestrated by big tech this past week, has the US become a corporatocracy? Is it right for these behemoth geekdoms to so completely control what can and can't be said in America? The answer to the second part of your question is no, it is not right. The answer to the first, I think if you've been watching the show, is what makes you think it's not already a corporatocracy?
It's been a corporatocracy for a long time.
It hasn't been for a while.
I mean, if you look at who really pulls the strings and has the power in America, it is corporate America. It's the wealthiest people in the country. It's the biggest businesses in the country. They get everything that they want all the time. And one of the things we talked about is really interesting. Trump was more upset that the PGA Tour had been pulled from his hotel than that he was being impeached and potentially convicted. Not that he's happy about that. I'm not sure that he's wrong, though, because the withdrawal, what that represents is the complete withdrawal of elite support and corporate enabling of him. And without that, he's screwed. I mean, look at Parler. They decided to pull the pin on Parler. Just like that.
They don't exist anymore.
They can't. First, they're pulled off the Google and Apple app stores. I think that happened together on the same day, like at the same time. And then Amazon pulls their web service. They can't even operate. They can't
find anyone else to do it. So,
so be careful what you're cheering on with that, guys, because it could easily come for you.
That's right. All right, next question.
Question number 2. Where do you think influential heterodox figures will sit in the mainstream media landscape with the reordering of power, Trump and mainstream retreat, Democratic control? Could the likes of Joe Rogan, Matt Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald, etc. be marginalized from MSM quarters? What do you think, Saagar?
Well, what makes you think that they're not already marginalized? Mainstream quarters. No, I mean, I think it will actually be exactly the same. I think we will live in an era under Joe Biden where there will be a great brainwashing of the last 5 years, largely because he's going to be, in my opinion, dramatically popular, and just because he's competent or semi-competent, distributing a vaccine and passing common sense economic legislation.
Low bar.
And it is. But what it means is that people will go back to sleep, so to speak. We will have a roaring economy with still many of the structural problems, but on the top line figures they can point to enough. And I think that what that will mean is that many of the people who critique and can see the problems within the system will be marginalized, maybe even more to the extent that they already are, because nobody wants to hear it in the boom times. Like if you think about the Obama era in 2013, I think it will be very similar to that type of time.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, so in a lot of ways, those figures rejected the mainstream as much as the mainstream rejected them.
Right.
And they don't need the mainstream.
No, they don't.
Right? They're doing incredibly well. They have huge audiences. They continue to be influential and have large voices in terms of the American political landscape. And I think in the Biden administration, they'll be some of the only voices that are actually interesting.
Yes.
I mean, I was at MSNBC during that boring Obama era, and it was really boring, right? I mean, at MSNBC, it was just like day in and day out cheerleading, which is boring. At Fox, it was day in and day out, oh my God, it's the end of the world, et cetera, which is also sort of boring. So I think all the mainstream outlets are going to be fairly predictable. And the only interesting and heterodox thought will be coming from some of those non-mainstream places. So I'm actually hopeful that this may be a kind of, this may be a good time for the flourishing of more heterodox and less partisan cheerleady type voices.
What I meant by that is I don't think the mainstream will want anything from them, which is a good thing, actually. We want less attention to be paid. And so we could say whatever the hell we want, and they don't try and, whatever. But I think in general, you're absolutely right, which is that it will actually be a better time for commentary outside of the mainstream.
Yeah.
And the mainstream didn't have to learn any lessons, and especially if Biden is doing well, so they'll just ignore it very much to their own peril.
Yes. All right. Last cue, Saagar. What is
Last question. Hey, Krystal and Saagar, do you find it likely that cynical actors among the GOP senators would vote for impeachment to eliminate the potential of a Trump 2024 run, thus advancing their own career prospects? Would such a move alienate too much of the Trump base to succeed? I think you generally know my answer on this, which is yes. And look, we covered a polling on the show. 57% of Republicans want Trump to be the 2024 nominee. He still has more than 2/3 support within the party. So the question is do you think you can lose 2/3 support of your overall party in order to win a primary? It's possible, but it would require there to be a 2016 primary level dynamic where the Trump vote is split up amongst like 17 different candidates, and you would consolidate the non-Trump vote. I just think that's extraordinarily unlikely.
The GOP has a collective action problem right now because they'd all like to be shut of this. Almost all of them would like to be shut of this guy.
Behind closed doors, they'd be like,
get rid of him. They'd love to, but they don't want to be the one to stick their neck out and actually get rid of him, especially the ones who are ambitious. Hawley, Cruz. Cotton has been, actually really good and courageous, I would say, throughout all of this. But especially the more ambitious ones are going to be the least courageous about getting out front, even though they have the most to gain. So behind the scenes, they may be talking to their buddies in the Senate saying, hey, why don't you do it? Why don't you vote to convict? Are they going to get out front on it? Not much of a chance on that one.
I find it very unlikely.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys. We're going to have more content for you later today.